much. On behalf of the Network of Quality Teaching and Learning, I welcome all of you to the EdTech Lounge. EdTech Lounge is our virtual space for faculty members to share their practices, their stories, and have a discussion on what's working, what's not working in the area of online teaching or blended teaching. So we started EdTech Lounge last year during the pandemic to support our faculty members in the transition to online learning, where we met every week, and we had faculty members from all over AKU come and share their experiences. In 2021, we have decided to have EdTech Lounge sessions every month. And so this is our third EdTech Lounge of 2021, and we are very happy to welcome our colleague from ISMC, Dr. Jeff Ten. Dr. Jeff Ten is Associate Professor of Political Economy at the AKU ISMC. He has a PhD in Economics from the School of Oriental and African Studies, University of London, and a Teaching and Learning in Higher and Professional Education certificate from the Institute of Education, University of London. He is a Fellow of Advanced AG and the Higher Education Academy before that. Prior to joining ISMC, he was a guest lecturer and visiting lecturer in Economics and Development Studies at SOAS and the London School of Economics and Political Science. He currently teaches courses on development, research methods, and Muslim societies as part of the MA program at ISMC. He has been head of ISMC's professional programs unit, overseeing the delivery of short courses, and MA coordinator for the MA in Muslim Cultures program at ISMC. As part of AKU, he has been on the Teaching and Learning Advisory Board, and he's a member of the Quality Assurance Review Committee. He was for a number of years external examiner at the School of International Development, University of East Anglia, and the Center for Financial and Management Studies at SOAS. He's a referee for several journals, including World Development and Journal of Contemporary Asia, and a reviewer for the British Academy. His research interests center on privatization, industrialization, corruption, urban infrastructure, including water and sanitation, entrepreneurship, and Islamization, and he has published in all these areas. He has been a consultant to the UN Special Rapporteur on the human rights to safe drinking water and sanitation, and he's currently principal investigator on a British Academy funded project on community-based water and management in Gilgit-Baltistan, Pakistan. So it is our pleasure to welcome Dr. Jeff Ten to share his story of online teaching and learning. While Dr. Jeff Ten is speaking, I'd like to request everyone to please keep their microphone on mute so that there is no disruption. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat window. We will have a Q&A after Dr. Jeff Ten's talk, where we will discuss your questions and your comments. So over to you, Dr. Jeff Ten.
Thanks, Azra. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, I can see.
Yes, now, yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thanks to so many of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules. Yeah, I don't know what to say really. It's not often I get to speak to so many people in London. Okay, to start off with, what I want to do is I'd like to start with some images. Can you take a minute and tell me what you think these photos are about? Can you just answer in the chat box. Thank you. That's pretty, I think it's fairly obvious. We're pretty much on the same page here. This was a pre-session task I had assigned for a 2-day online short course titled The Challenges of Development in Muslim Societies, an Introduction. Participants were asked to post a photograph of poverty, along with a brief explanation of why they selected their photo. Here's a screenshot of some of the responses posted by students on Padlet in the week leading up to the first session. I find it important to include, usually 1 to 2 pre-session activities such as this to gauge prior knowledge, including preconceptions and also misconceptions of the topic. This is useful to engage with students, not just to fine-tune the lesson content for myself and the plan, but also to provide an entry point to engage with students' own understanding of a subject. This is because knowledge is not transmitted, but constructed. And the construction of knowledge needs to begin with prior knowledge or what students already know. So what I'd like to do over the next few slides, in the next 10, 15 minutes, is to share some of my experiences in designing an online course. I'll provide some background in terms of AKU ISMC's short course series and our partnership with AKAH, the agency, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat. I'll discuss course preparation and delivery and conclude with a few lessons learned. Along the way, I'll try to touch on some aspects of teaching and learning. Now, ISMC's online short course series was introduced in 2020, partly in response to the opportunities presented by lockdown and the demand for online courses as people were basically stuck at home. The short course series was seen as an opportunity to increase ISMC's reach, raise its profile, and at the same time generate some revenue on the side. The challenges included competition from other universities, with ISMC not having the same brand recognition. This was especially for a development-related course, where other universities had much more established programs in development studies, for example. A bigger problem is the historically low turnout and long-term decline of many previous short courses due to a small pool of potential participants, including those who traditionally support AKU. So what this meant was that once this pool of participants had completed the range of short courses offered in a year, there was no obvious route for their progression. The question then is, how can we address the problems of low and declining numbers of short course participants in the past? Now, I've always felt that one solution is to work closely with an existing organization, most obviously in our case, an AKDN agency, to tailor a short course specifically for that organization's needs or interests. The Aga Khan Agency for Habitat in Pakistan was an obvious organization because of an existing ISMC AKAH partnership on a British Academy research project in Gilgit-Baltistan in northern Pakistan. At the same time, I had taken the opportunity to revise my own development course as part of ISMC realigning its teaching from a 10-week term to a 16-week semester. So as part of this revision, I incorporated the work of selected AKDN agencies in related sessions. This included the Aga Khan Fund for Economic Development on the session on infrastructure, for example, Aga Khan Foundation, AKF, on women's empowerment, Aga Khan Rural Support Program, AKRSP, on grassroots democracy and civil society, the Aga Khan Agency for Microfinance, and AKAH on water and sanitation. The idea for a development course for AKAH originated during a conversation with a senior AKAH manager while we were stuck in traffic in Islamabad in January 2020, where he raised the problem of development in Pakistan and an interest to learn more. So when I was asked to deliver a short course on development, I proposed that this should be tailor-made for AKAH Pakistan specifically, assuming that there was sufficient interest amongst AKAH staff and ideally support from HR in AKAH. Following several months of negotiations on the content, timing, and fees, AKAH HR eventually confirmed 27 participants. To address the lack of progression in previous short courses, I approached this introductory course as part of a series of short courses on the challenges of development in Muslim societies. So future installments would simply replace an introduction with microfinance or infrastructure or women or any number of development topics. Once I decided on the course, I then needed to think about how best to deliver this to meet the planned learning outcomes. Now I'm fairly comfortable with teaching technologies. I incorporated Moodle into classroom teaching activities when it was first introduced, and my courses have for a number of years now required students bring their laptops to class. But I couldn't remember the last time I delivered a session entirely online. I was also anxious about managing on my own a range of online activities with over 30 participants. So as a first step in my preparation, I enrolled on an online course on teaching in a virtual classroom by AKU's network of blended and digital learning, only to realize halfway through that I had previously enrolled in the exact same course a year ago. In some ways, teaching is like speaking a language. Unless you practice, you forget. As I've had to prioritize research in 2020, I wasn't able to implement what I had learned from the previous year's course. So this course was a very timely refresher, and I would strongly recommend everyone to take full advantage of the online teaching support provided by AKU. BDLNet was also very supportive, as I quickly realized that unlike facilitating a meeting, using Zoom for teaching is quite a different proposition. So I emailed Abe with what must have been for her a never-ending list of questions. Do I need a paid Zoom account to pre-assign participants into breakout rooms? Should I keep AKAH staff and other participants in separate breakout groups or mix them up? How do I prompt students for nonverbal feedback as part of the 5-minute rule to check if participants are engaged? How do I change settings if I use the official ISMC Zoom account? How do I show the names of annotators on the whiteboard? And how do I create a poll for feedback at the end of the session? Is it possible to use the Zoom poll for a quiz to assess if learning outcomes have been met? Before everyone starts clogging Abe's inbox, I discovered this self-learning manual on the right that was just released this year, and which would have made life much easier for me and for Abe, really. So I would strongly recommend this as a starting point for any sort of online course delivery or design. Now, if it's not already obvious that I prefer to be prepared, it should probably be by now. I like to plan for everything. Here's a screenshot of my lesson plan for the first part of session 1. I find a spreadsheet useful not just in terms of structuring the lesson and providing me with an overview, but also to ensure that every activity, whether this is a lecture slide or a task, has a clear aim and hence reason to be included. Because unnecessary content and content overload is not conducive to learning. As you can see in the first column, the overall structure of the lesson is framed by the BOBS model for lesson planning. Bridging, objectives or outcomes, pre-assessment, participatory learning, post-assessment, and summary. The last two are not in the screenshot. My lessons are also usually guided by a central question and a series of subsidiary questions that follow from this, and that are related to the learning outcomes. So checking on learning outcomes is fairly easy in terms of whether students are able to answer these questions. The instructions column includes specific tasks so that students can actively participate in their learning, along with short lecture components listed as share slide that correspond with slide titles in the right column. As they say, even the best laid plans can go astray. I tried to plan for most things. I even had a backup laptop in case my aging laptop crashed, but I did not expect a couple of things. The first I'll describe as Ed's internet failure. As I was using ISMC's Zoom account, I relied on Ed, ISMC's academic administrator, to start the meeting. I was confident Ed would be up before 9 a.m. to start the Zoom session from home, but I completely did not anticipate him not being able to get on his internet, which also meant that I was not able to email or speak with him on Teams. At the same time, I was frantically replying to participant emails asking when the host was starting the session. Needless to say, this threw a huge spanner into my meticulously timed lesson plan. The irony, of course, was that I was expecting internet problems in Pakistan, not the UK. The other unexpected development was multiple participants sharing the same video conferencing room in Gilgit and Chitral. This was something I could have anticipated, as I had suggested AKAH staff try to join from the AKAH office in Gilgit, where the internet was more stable and where there was a generator for backup power in case of a power cut. As the internet quality was not good enough for video streaming, I couldn't be entirely sure how many participants were in each of these rooms or which participant was speaking. I ended up assigning one breakout room for those in the Gilgit office, but the entire feel and dynamic was different because there was now a mix of virtual and also face-to-face groups. So the main lessons, I think, for me is that there needs to be a balance between planning and flexibility. To try not to plan for absolutely everything and to accept that not everything will go to plan. So being able to adapt and improvise is important. Planning cannot guarantee that nothing will go wrong, but that said, I think it still minimizes the chances of things going wrong and improves the likelihood of being able to respond to contingencies. I should mention that the unanticipated issues did not affect the outcome of the course, and participant satisfaction based on the course feedback and course evaluation was high. So I'll end on this positive note, and I'm happy to answer questions and elaborate on any of the points raised. Thank you.